The towering halls of the Galactic Council's tribunal were built to inspire fear. Ornate metalwork, polished black stone, and floating holographic banners displaying the symbols of 1,000 conquered worlds loomed over the massive chamber. Alien dignitaries filled the rows of seats, their whispers like the rustling of dead leaves. The air smelled of burning incense, a ceremonial touch meant to symbolize the council's justice. At the center of the chamber, 10 figures knelt in the harsh glow of the overhead lights. Their wrists were bound in grave cuffs, their heads bowed, not in submission, but calculation. Humans. Not just any humans. Green Berets. Earth's deadliest warriors. High Chancellor Vornis, the bloated, multi-limbed overlord of the Galactic Council, stood at the podium, his reptilian lips curling into a smirk. His robes of office shimmered under the artificial lighting as he turned to face the crowd. The alien spectators, diplomats, warlords, and representatives of the galaxy's most powerful factions, watched with amusement. These creatures, Vornis began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber, are the so-called elite warriors of Earth. They dared to infiltrate our world, to sabotage our fleets, and to resist our authority. But now, as you see, they kneel before us. Their capture marks the end of Earth's foolish defiance. Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. Some chuckled. Others sneered. Vornis turned his gaze to the prisoners. His slitted yellow eyes settled on the man in the center, the leader. "Tell me, human," the Chancellor sneered. "How does it feel to be powerless?" The Green Beret raised his head. His name was Captain Mark Rayner, and he was studying everything. The number of guards. The placement of the exits. The holoscreens displaying security footage. The weapons strapped to the guards' hips. The way the alien soldiers stood, too relaxed. They didn't expect resistance. He smiled. Not the smile of a broken prisoner, but of a man who already knew how this was going to end. "You tell me," Rayner said. Vornis flinched. Something in the human's tone, too confident, too calm, sent a shiver of unease through him. Then it happened. A guard moved to strike Rayner, bringing down a shock baton. And in that instant, the Green Berets attacked. 7 seconds. That's all it took. Before the baton could connect, Rayner twisted his body, bringing his arms forward in an impossible movement. The grave cuff snapped open. The guard's baton swung down, but Rayner wasn't there anymore. He had pivoted, using the momentum of his fall to sweep the alien's legs out from under him. The creature crashed to the floor, his weapon clattering. At the same time, Sergeant Carter and Private O'Neill broke free. Carter, a bear of a man with hands like iron, grabbed the nearest guard's rifle and snapped his neck with a brutal twist. O'Neill, the team's fastest, ducked under a plasma bolt, grabbed a fallen knife, and drove it into an alien's throat. The guards panicked. Rayner ripped the weapon from the first guard's hands and turned. One shot. Right between the eyes. The alien dropped, his blood splattering across the polished floor. Another guard fumbled with his blaster, too slow. O'Neill threw his knife, embedding it deep in the soldier's eye socket. The tribunal erupted into chaos. The alien dignitaries screamed. Some scrambled to flee. Others cowered in their seats, stunned by the sheer violence unfolding before them. More guards stormed in from the chamber's side doors, pulse rifles raised. "Cover!" Rayner barked. The Green Berets moved like ghosts, grabbing fallen weapons, diving behind the massive stone podiums that lined the chamber. The first wave of plasma fire ripped through the air, melting marble and shattering glass. Rayner's instincts took over. His rifle kicked against his shoulder as he fired. 3 shots, 3 kills. Carter grabbed a fallen pulse grenade, yanked the pin, and lobbed it into the advancing guards. Boom. The explosion sent a shockwave through the chamber, hurling bodies into the air. A fleeing dignitary tripped over a corpse, scrambling toward a side exit. O'Neill grabbed him by the back of his ornate robe and slammed his head against a pillar. 15 seconds. That's all it had been. 15 seconds, and every council guard lay dead or dying. Vornis stood frozen at the podium, his mouth agape. This was impossible. The humans had been shackled. Powerless. Beaten. And now, the chamber was a slaughterhouse. Rayner climbed onto the podium, stepping over a twitching corpse. He leveled his weapon at the Chancellor's face. "You were saying?" Rayner asked. Vornis's mouth worked silently, his yellow eyes wide with terror. He lunged for the emergency alarm. Wrong move. Rayner pulled the trigger. Blam. Vornis's hand exploded in a spray of blood. The Chancellor screamed, clutching his ruined limb. Rayner turned to his men. Weapons? O'Neill was already moving, grabbing pulse rifles and ammunition from fallen guards. Carter picked up a plasma sword, igniting its energy field with a deadly hum. "We're loaded," O'Neill confirmed. The rest of the team regrouped, checking gear, reloading. Professionals. They had just torn apart a heavily guarded tribunal in less than a minute, and they were already preparing for the next phase. Rayner turned back to Vornis. The Chancellor was still on the ground, whimpering. "You should have killed us the moment you captured us," Rayner said. Vornis bared his teeth. "Why, you'll never make it out of here. The entire city will hunt you down. You are already dead, human." Rayner just smiled. "We'll see." Then he smashed the comm system. A piercing alarm blared through the fortress. Red lights strobed. Overhead holoscreens flashed emergency alerts. "Contain the prisoners. Lock down the city. Kill on sight." "Time to go," Carter said. The Green Berets moved toward the exit. But before leaving, Rayner turned back to the crowd of terrified dignitaries, now huddled against the chamber walls. "You think this is over?" he said, voice low, deadly. "We're just getting started." Then they disappeared into the corridors, leaving behind only corpses, smoke, and the beginning of a nightmare. The alarm blared through the Galactic Council's fortress like a death knell. Massive steel blast doors slammed shut, sealing entire sections of the complex. Automated turrets whirred to life, scanning for movement. Red warning lights strobed along the corridors, casting eerie shadows over the polished metal walls. The Green Berets weren't running. They were moving, fast, precise, calculating every step. "Carter, where's our gear?" Captain Mark Rayner barked as they sprinted through a side corridor. Sergeant Carter, gripping a stolen pulse rifle, glanced down at the datapad he had ripped from a fallen guard. The interface flickered under his touch, still linked to the fortress security system. "North Wing," Carter answered. "High security vault." He paused. "We've got a problem." "What kind?" Carter turned the screen so Rayner could see. The vault wasn't just guarded, it was locked down under emergency protocols. Automated turrets, blast doors, and a heavily armored security detail had been deployed to protect it. "Shit," O'Neill muttered. "We're gonna have a hell of a fight getting in there." Rayner smirked. "Then let's not go in quietly." 2. Death in the halls. They moved like shadows, slipping into a side maintenance corridor, avoiding the flood of reinforcements that had begun sweeping the fortress halls. "Hold," Rayner ordered, flattening against a bulkhead as a squad of alien soldiers marched past, their weapons raised, scanning the corridors. 10 of them. Well-armed. Well-trained. O'Neill, crouched beside him, leaned in. "We taking them?" Rayner didn't answer. He just raised his stolen pistol and fired. The first alien skull exploded, splattering the wall behind him with thick, black blood. Before the others could react, Carter swung around the corner, his pulse rifle screaming death as he cut down 2 more. O'Neill lunged forward, knife in hand, ducking under a wild plasma shot before jamming the blade into a guard's throat. The remaining aliens tried to recover, too late. The Green Berets were faster, meaner, and deadlier. One soldier turned to run. Rayner grabbed him by the back of his armor and slammed him into the wall, cracking his exosuit with raw force. The alien gasped, but Rayner didn't give him a chance to beg. He snapped his neck and let the body drop. 7 seconds. That's all it took. Rayner wiped the blood off his knife and turned to the others. "Move. They know where we are now." 3. The vault break-in. The security vault was ahead. A massive titanium blast door stood between them and their gear. 2 sentry turrets tracked the hall outside, their barrels glowing with a faint hum of charging plasma. And beyond that, a security detail of 20 alien soldiers. Rayner grinned. "O'Neill, you got something for those turrets?" The demolitions expert pulled a small EMP charge from his belt. "Thought you'd never ask." O'Neill sprinted forward, slid across the smooth floor, and slapped the charge onto the wall near the turrets. Zap. The machines whined, their systems frying in a cascade of sparks before they shut down. The guards reacted instantly, raising their weapons. Rayner and Carter were already firing. The corridor erupted in plasma fire. The Green Berets didn't bother with cover. They moved forward, relentless, picking off the enemy with pinpoint accuracy. Carter fired a burst shot, hitting 3 soldiers in the chest. O'Neill ducked, rolled, and came up swinging, his combat knife burying itself in an alien's gut before he ripped upward, splitting him open. Rayner was in the thick of it, ripping a plasma rifle from a dying enemy and firing it point-blank into another's face. The alien's head evaporated in a burst of steam and charred flesh. Within 20 seconds, It was over. 20 alien soldiers. Dead. The vault door remained, massive, impenetrable. Carter approached the control panel, inspecting it. This thing's locked down tight. I can try slicing in, but it'll take. Forget slicing, O'Neill interrupted, pulling out a breaching charge. Rayner nodded. Blow it. O'Neill placed the charge. The team stepped back. Boom. The shockwave rippled through the hall, sending debris flying as the vault door buckled inward. Inside, their gear lay neatly arranged, tactical armor, custom weapons, explosives. Rayner grabbed his rifle, feeling its familiar weight. He chambered a round. Now it's a fair fight. 4. The fortress erupts in chaos. With their weapons back, the Green Berets became death incarnate. They moved through the fortress, hunting down squads of alien soldiers, using their own corridors against them. Carter took position in a high overlook, sniping targets with brutal precision. O'Neill, an artist with explosives, rigged hallways with trip mines and turned ambushes into massacres. Rayner led the charge, a storm of destruction, his rifle never missing a shot. By the time the fortress command realized what was happening, it was too late. Security collapsed. Troops refused to engage. And the worst part? The Green Berets weren't escaping yet. They were tearing the place apart. 5. A message in blood. The fortress comms flared to life. Attention! All forces, fall back to the central stronghold. The humans have. The message cut off. Rayner had reached the main communication hub. He smashed through the doors, firing 2 quick rounds into the alien officers inside. The last one tried to crawl away. O'Neill put a bullet in his skull. Carter stepped to the console, typing. We've got a line to Earth's fleet. I can send a distress beacon. Rayner shook his head. Not yet. He turned to O'Neill. Upload false attack reports. Make it look like an entire human battalion just landed. O'Neill grinned. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Within minutes, the Galactic Council's entire defense force was scrambling, rushing toward fake invasion sites. Meanwhile, the Green Berets kept destroying key infrastructure. Power stations, blown to hell. Security barricades, annihilated. Reinforcement routes, mined with explosives. By the time the enemy realized what was happening, half the fortress was in flames. The Green Berets weren't just escaping. They were turning the Galactic Council's headquarters into a war zone. And it was just the beginning. The fortress was a nightmare of fire and death. Smoke curled through the shattered halls, carrying the acrid scent of burning metal and alien flesh. The Green Berets had carved a bloody path through every obstacle, and now, the Galactic Council's leadership was in full-blown panic. Chancellor Vornis slammed his fists on the war table, his reptilian eyes filled with barely restrained rage. Where are my reinforcements? He roared. A trembling officer stammered, our forces are being cut down before they can regroup. The humans are, there. Destroying us, General Zurich finished, his mandibles clicking anxiously. They aren't just escaping. They're taking our fortress apart piece by piece. Vornis refused to believe it. These were 6 humans. The Council had armies. They had warships in orbit. They had the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. And yet, the screens before them told a different story. Dozens of alien corpses littered the halls. Automated turrets had been hacked and turned against their own troops. Security barricades had failed to stop the humans' brutal advance. Fires spread uncontrollably, with key power grids deliberately sabotaged. Vornis snarled. Seal off the fortress core. Flood the lower levels with poison gas if you must. I don't care what it takes, kill them. Rayner and his squad sprinted down a ruined corridor, moving like wraiths in the smoke-filled chaos. Their weapons hummed with deadly intent, each of them covered in blood, sweat, and the dust of battle. We need an exfil plan, Carter grunted, checking his rifle's power levels. We're not walking out of here without a way off-world. O'Neill, breathing heavily, smirked despite the situation. Or we could kill everyone until there's no one left to stop us. Rayner didn't bother to respond. The truth was, that wasn't entirely a joke. The destruction they had already caused was far beyond what even he had imagined. The Galactic Council had turned their fortress into a tomb, and the Green Berets were filling it with bodies. Carter suddenly stopped. His wrist scanner beeped urgently. His face went pale. They just locked down the entire central district. Blast doors, energy shields, the works. And, he hesitated. They're flooding the lower levels with poison gas. O'Neill swore under his breath. Son of a bitch. They're trying to suffocate us like rats. Rayna's mind raced. Their enemies were panicking, throwing everything they had at the problem. That meant they were making mistakes. That gas, he said. Where's it being controlled from? Carter checked his scanner. Main control station. 3 levels up. Rayna grinned. Then we take it. They moved fast. Their route led straight through the heart of the war zone. Every step forward was met with fire, death, and bloodshed. Bodies lay sprawled in burning corridors. The walls were charred from pulse rifle bursts and explosive shockwaves. The scent of cooked flesh and melted metal filled the air. Halfway to their target, an elite alien strike team ambushed them from an elevated walkway. Plasma fire ripped through the hall. The Berets barely had time to dive for cover as the wall behind them was torn to shreds. Shit! They brought the big boys. O'Neill shouted, rolling out of the way of a barrage of incoming fire. Carter didn't hesitate. He snapped up his rifle, lined up a shot, and fired. A sniper round punched through an alien's skull, sending his body tumbling over the railing. Rayna grabbed a fallen grenade, yanked the pin, and lobbed it toward the walkway. The explosion shattered the structure, sending the remaining alien soldiers screaming into the abyss below. No time to celebrate. They moved. The control station was just ahead, heavily fortified, but nothing was stopping them now. The control station was a fortress of its own. Reinforced walls. Automated turrets. At least 30 heavily armed alien guards. Rayna didn't slow. He gestured to O'Neill. Blow the side walls. Force them into a kill zone. O'Neill grinned, already pulling out the explosives. Boom time. A second later. Boom. 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 The walls blew inward. Smoke and fire roared through the station as debris tore through alien ranks. Screams filled the air as soldiers staggered in shock. The Green Berets didn't hesitate. They rushed in like demons. Carter took out the automated turrets before they could activate. O'Neill unleashed hell with his shotgun, blasting aliens apart at close range. Rayna moved through the chaos with brutal precision. He grabbed an alien officer who tried to flee, slammed him into the console, and snapped his neck. Then he saw it, the gas control system. He smashed his fist into the console, overriding the sequence. The gas dispersal system shut down immediately. Then he rerouted the gas lines, directly into enemy-occupied sectors. Across the fortress, entire squads of alien soldiers suddenly collapsed, choking, their own poison killing them. Panic erupted. The fortress was falling apart. With the gas threat neutralized, Rayna's squad needed an extraction point. Carter pulled up the schematics. There's a hangar bay 2 levels down. Heavily fortified, but... O'Neill cut in. But we're Green Berets. Rayna grinned. Damn right. Let's take ourselves a ship. The hangar was swarming with enemy forces. Hundreds of alien troops. Gunships. Fighter craft. A battlefield waiting to explode. O'Neill whistled. That's a lot of ugly between us and freedom. Rayna checked his ammo. They were running low. Didn't matter. Carter, high ground. O'Neill, make some noise. They moved. Carter sniped high-value targets one by one. O'Neill rigged fuel lines with explosives. Then, boom. The entire hangar erupted into chaos. Fireballs ripped through fuel tanks. Soldiers screamed as ships exploded. Rayna charged forward, his rifle blazing. He gunned down 2 guards, ducked under a plasma bolt, grabbed an alien by the throat, and used him as a shield while advancing. Carter's shots rang out, each bullet another dead enemy. O'Neill detonated another charge. Ships tumbled, crushed under debris. Within 3 minutes, the hangar was theirs. Rayna picked the fastest, deadliest dropship on the deck. The team piled in, hacking the controls. Alarm screamed. Rayna took the pilot seat. Hold on. The dropship blasted out of the hangar at full speed. Behind them, the fortress burned. The Galactic Council's command structure lay in ruins. The Green Berets had done the impossible. And now, they were bringing the war to the enemy's doorstep. The dropship roared through the upper atmosphere, engines burning white-hot as it tore away from the Galactic Council's collapsing fortress. Inside, the Green Berets checked weapons, reloaded magazines, and braced themselves. They had broken out, left a graveyard in their wake, but they weren't safe yet. Carter glanced at the scanner. Multiple fighters inbound. They're scrambling interceptors. Rayna kept his hands steady on the controls. The console flickered with red warning lights, hostile locks, incoming fire, external damage. He gritted his teeth and yanked the ship into an evasive roll just as a plasma barrage scorched past, missing by feet. O'Neill strapped in behind the ship's turret. Guess we're not done killing yet. The first fighter overshot them, streaking past at incredible speed. A second banked hard, laser cannons flashing as it loosed another volley. Rayner twisted the dropship sideways, barely dodging the blasts, then pushed the throttle to full. The ship shuddered, engines straining as they raced toward the upper atmosphere. O'Neill's turret barked fire, slamming heavy-caliber rounds into the pursuing fighters. One burst apart in a violent explosion, debris tumbling toward the burning fortress below. Another locked on, tracking them with relentless precision. Evasive maneuvers aren't gonna cut it, Carter warned. They've got targeting locks. We need to take the fight to them. Rayner glanced at the controls. The dropship was built for troop transport, not aerial combat. No shields, minimal weaponry, no countermeasures. They were sitting ducks against dedicated warfighters. Unless... He flipped a switch. The ship's cargo bay doors groaned open, exposing the burning planet below. Carter, O'Neill, get to the ramp. We're gonna make this personal. O'Neill whooped. Now we're talking. The two soldiers unstrapped, moved toward the open bay, rifles in hand. Wind tore through the cabin as the dropship streaked upward, pushing toward escape velocity. Outside, the alien fighters closed in. Carter knelt, lined up a shot, and fired. His sniper round tore through the cockpit of the nearest interceptor. The ship spiraled wildly, then detonated in a bright flash. O'Neill aimed his grenade launcher, let loose a high-explosive round. The projectile arced through open sky, then exploded near another fighter's wing. The pilot veered off course, struggling for control, then vanished into the atmosphere below. The last enemy fighter banked hard and prepared to fire. Rayner made his move. He killed the dropship's engines. For a split second, the ship dropped like a rock. The alien pilot overcorrected, trying to compensate for the unexpected maneuver. Carter didn't miss. His rifle barked once. A single, precise shot punched through the enemy's hull, right into its fuel line. The fighter ignited like a starburst. Rayner reignited the engines, pulling them back up. The ship broke free of the atmosphere, rocketing into the void of space. Silence. Carter slumped against the bulkhead, breathing hard. O'Neill grinned, patting his rifle. Hell of a fight. Rayner wasn't celebrating. He checked the nav scanner. A blockade. The Galactic Council's fleet had already mobilized. Massive warships loomed ahead, their weapons bristling, positioning themselves to cut off escape. Dozens of smaller vessels swarmed like predatory fish, forming a net of death. They knew we'd make it this far, Carter muttered. O'Neill cracked his knuckles. Then we pushed through. Rayner knew brute force wasn't an option. Their dropship couldn't withstand sustained fire. A single direct hit from one of those warships would atomize them. He checked the sensors again. Then he saw it. A nearby derelict station. Massive, abandoned, drifting just outside the blockade. An old battlefield relic from a past war, its hull riddled with holes, metal torn and exposed. A perfect hiding place. He punched in the course. Strap in. We're not running. We're disappearing. The dropship hurtled toward the wreckage. The enemy fleet adjusted, scanning, tracking their trajectory. Within moments, the warships opened fire. Rayner rolled the ship through a gauntlet of destruction. Plasma beams seared past, missing by inches. Explosions rocked their hull. Alarms blared. The ship shuddered. But they kept going. Rayner pushed the engines beyond redline, aiming straight for the derelict station. At the last possible second, he killed all power. The ship went dark, tumbling into the wreckage's gravitational field. Enemy scanners swept past, searching. The Green Berets held their breath. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The enemy fleet stopped firing. They think we're dead, Carter whispered. Rayner exhaled. Let's keep it that way. Their ship drifted silently into the wreckage. Once inside, Rayner activated a soft power reboot, keeping their signature low. For the moment, they had vanished. O'Neill leaned back, smirking. I don't know if that was genius or insane. Carter smirked. It's Rayner. It was both. Rayner wasn't smiling. He was already planning. They weren't just going to escape. They were going to finish what they started. Their war wasn't over. It had just begun. The wreckage of the derelict station drifted through the void, silent and forgotten. Within its twisted remains, the Green Beret's stolen dropship lay hidden, power signatures reduced to nothing. The Galactic Council's fleet still hovered in the distance, scanning the system, waiting for any sign of movement. Inside the dropship, Rayna sat at the controls, expression hard. Their situation was precarious. They had escaped the fortress, crippled its defenses, and left a trail of death in their wake. But now, the real challenge began. Carter analyzed the scanner data. They're still looking for us. No warp signatures detected, so they assume we're either dead or hiding nearby. O'Neill adjusted his gear. Good. Let them think that. Gives us time to hit back. Rayna glanced at the floating wreckage beyond the viewport. This station. What do we know about it? Carter ran a quick analysis. Old war relic. Pre-council era. Mostly gutted, but the power core is intact. If we can tap into it, we might be able to. He paused, then smirked. Oh, that's good. Rayna leaned forward. Talk to me. Carter turned the display toward him. This station has a reactor overload sequence. It was designed to self-destruct if captured. The council never salvaged it because the process is unstable. They were afraid it might still go off. O'Neill's grin widened. And what if we make it go off? Carter nodded. We can set it to blow. Chain reaction would take out everything within a 5-kilometer radius. If we lure part of the fleet in close enough. Rayna's eyes darkened. We turned their blockade into a graveyard. Silence filled the cabin. Then O'Neill chuckled. I like this plan. This is a Green Beret plan. Rayna stood. Then let's get to work. The team suited up and moved out into the wreckage. The derelict station was massive, a crumbling husk of metal and forgotten war. Twisted corridors, shattered bulkheads, and floating debris filled the darkened expanse. Rayna led the way, rifle at the ready. Carter followed, tapping into a handheld scanner, searching for the reactor core. O'Neill kept his shotgun ready, watching their backs. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the station became. The walls bore scorch marks from past battles. Skeletons of long-dead soldiers drifted in zero gravity, their armor rusted and broken. This place is a tomb, O'Neill muttered. Carter found the control room first. The ancient consoles were barely operational, flickering with dim power. He tapped into the system, scanning its functions. It's still online. Barely. Rayna stepped beside him. Can you start the overload? Carter's fingers flew across the console. Give me a second, he frowned. It's old tech. Not responding to standard bypasses. O'Neill smirked. Hit it. Carter sighed, then slammed his fist against the console. The screen flickered, then lit up in red. Reactor overload sequence initiated. The system let out a low, ominous hum. Power surged through the wreckage. The station trembled as ancient energy systems struggled to come online. Carter checked the countdown. 5 minutes until full detonation. Rayna activated his comms. Let's make sure they see it. The Galactic Council fleet detected the sudden power surge. Admiral Vexen, overseeing the blockade, narrowed his eyes at the display. What in the void? That station is powering up. One of his officers looked panicked. Sir, we're detecting an overload sequence. The station is going critical. Vexen frowned. That station is ancient. It should be dead. Another officer spoke. It must be the humans. Vexen's expression darkened. He had heard enough about what these humans had done. A Green Beret team, only 6 soldiers, had ripped through an entire council stronghold. And now, they were still fighting. He wasn't about to let them escape. Send in an assault team, Vexen ordered. Secure that station and end this madness. A squadron of elite strike troops deployed, their ships streaking toward the wreckage. Exactly what Rayna wanted. Inside the station, Carter grinned. Bingo. Their ships are inbound. O'Neill checked his rifle. Time to go loud. Rayna nodded. Hit them hard. Draw them deeper inside. The first enemy dropships latched onto the station's hull. Alien commandos in full combat gear stormed inside, weapons ready. Rayna and his team were waiting. The first group never saw it coming. A grenade rolled into their formation. Boom. The explosion ripped through the corridor. Body parts floated in zero gravity, blood misting the air. O'Neill opened fire, his shotgun tearing through the survivors. Carter picked off high-value targets with precision shots. Rayna moved like a phantom, knifing one enemy through the throat, then grabbing his weapon and turning it against his own squad. The second wave of commandos pushed forward. Plasma bolts tore through the corridors. Rayna's squad fell back, leading them deeper into the doomed station. A commando lunged at Rayna, blade drawn. Rayna sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, broke it, then drove his own knife into the alien's chest. Carter blasted another enemy through the skull. O'Neill ripped a fallen soldier's weapon free and unloaded into the advancing troops. The battle was brutal, close quarters, merciless. The enemy kept coming. But then, Carter grinned. Time is almost up. The station began to shake violently. Alarms blared. Metal groaned. The reactor's glow turned blinding white. O'Neill kicked an alien off a ledge. That's our cue. Rayner activated his comms. Move. Now. They sprinted back to the dropship as the station began its death throes. The enemy realized too late. Admiral Vexen's flagship received a transmission from his strike team. Admiral, it's a trap. The station. Static. Then the wreckage exploded. A wave of pure destruction surged outward, engulfing the assault team's ships, then reaching the nearest battleships. The blast ripped through the Council fleet, tearing ships apart like paper. Hulls snapped in half. Fire and debris filled the void. The blockade collapsed. The Green Berets dropship shot through the chaos, weaving between burning wreckage, dodging explosions. Rayner pushed the engines to full. We're clear. O'Neill whooped. Holy hell. We just took out a fleet. Carter laughed, exhausted. They'll never forget this. Rayner's eyes were cold, determined. No. And we're not done. As they blasted into warp space, the truth settled in. The Green Berets had done the impossible. But this war wasn't over. Now, the Council knew their names. And they were coming back for blood.